What's up, everybody? Griffin with 7B Adventure. If you've been following around a little bit, I know I just started, and it's been quite a bit, but I started LS swapping my Cherokee. This is a full-size Cherokee. It's 1976, not a Chief, because mine was an Aero track. Mine was factory 401 Turbo 400 Quadra-Track, so it was the all-wheel drive transfer case, drive slugs in the front axle, Dana 44 front, Dana 44 rear. There was no problems with it. The motor started getting a little bit of a tick and needed to be rebuilt. Lifters were starting to get a little noisy in it. And it leaked quite a bit of oil around the oil pump, and those AMC motors are very tedious on the oiling system on them. And I'm not really big for nostalgia on factory stuff on rigs. So I wanted to put a modern day powertrain in a motor that I know a lot about, which would be these LS powertrains, which is a GM. I like the Gen 3, Gen 4, so Gen 3, 99 to 07, and then into Gen 4, goes into electric throttle body, drive-by-wire, a lot nicer, newer stuff. And I like the LS, they're cheap and easy to build horsepower. I know a lot of people hate them now because they're LS swaps everywhere, but I build them how I like. There's a lot of transmissions I know I can use with them. I've done 4L80 rebuilds, NV4500, and in this build, I'm actually going to be putting the NV4500 that came out of Carnage because I had just rebuilt my spare for that because I wrecked third gear. I had the wrong fluid in it, and the transmission was old, so the synchros weren't the best, and with the wrong fluid in it, they glazed over, so that synchro just didn't work anymore. So it didn't slow the gear down for them to mesh up, so I kind of just rammed that thing into gear every time I shifted from fourth to third or second to third. Sometimes I could double clutch it second to third and it would save it, but I'd have to do perfect RPM, so it was getting to the point that it wasn't happy, or it definitely wasn't happy for a long time, but I just kept on pushing it, and I actually rounded the teeth over that. But you saw in the Cherokee, I did put the LS mounts. There's a 5.3. Valve is slightly open. Helps if the exhaust is not on. Looking down in the cylinder, that is a flat top piston. This bad boy is a 4.8 instead of 5.3. So that was actually out of a van, so it makes a lot of sense being a 4.8 over a 5.3 because most of the vans I've done my research on were a 4.8 liter instead of a 5.3, which is totally fine. I'm throwing boost at it, so I'm going to see how much boost that motor will take. My bet is going to fold a connecting rod up or it's going to break a piston because those are the primary things that'll break in that. But new chassis, I am stripping down tonight, pulling all the wiring harness off it, pulling the exhaust out of it. All right, so I'm gonna get into pulling the rest of the stuff, making this chassis sanitary. Was gonna use this fuel tank, but where I actually need to shorten this chassis to make the wheelbase work with my Cherokee is about 8 inches what I need to cut out roughly. I need to sanitary, pull a bunch of stuff out so this will fit under the Cherokee so I can actually see where it's gonna land. So all the old wiring harness is coming off. The fuel tank will end up coming out. I will pull the exhaust off because I'm also going to pull plugs, pull the drive lines out of the way, get the rest of the exhaust off the chassis, cats, all the extra wiring. ABS module is going to come off because I don't run any of the electronics for that. Down the road with the hull tech in this, I might put ABS, not priority right now. That's way down the road. Pull all the big components out of my way, make this as clean as possible, and then I can go through, cut the rest of the old body mounts out and figure out where I'm going to weld in the new ones once I slide this underneath the chassis, see where the rear wheel well mounts up. I'm going to see where I like the front wheel well, and that'll place the motor properly, and then I can measure from there to where I'm going to put the rear axle, where I'm going to trim this chassis. This one's getting cut right about the front of the fuel tank, so this fuel tank will go out. I'll build a custom aluminum one, which is good because I'm gonna use a custom top hat from a company off eBay that uses dual 525 or 550 pumps, so basically the same pump that's in a Hellcat. And these cross members are coming out because I am deleting the torsion bars and going to a coilover kit at the top of my head. I don't remember what the company is, but it basically puts a coilover, Viking coilover, right where that shock lands. Got to lay it in a little bit, trim the bump stops. I'm also going to use a 2-inch drop spindle so I can keep my steering geometry proper. And with it getting lowered in the rear, is going to get a 4-inch to 5-inch lowering coil. I have to measure where everything's going to land. It'll get a lowering shock mount so that geometry is proper. And there's actually a steel bracket on each side of the frame where the factory bump stops are, and those are going to get trimmed out as well. And then all these are old body mounts. The spare tire winch I will delete because this is actually where I'm going to put my fuel tank. So let's get into it. Alright, so if anybody has ever dealt with the neutral safety switches off the 4L60s or the 4L80s, know that these plugs are really hard to get out. Well, the reason is they're actually glued in to keep them from coming unplugged is the biggest thing. And I'm going to try to save this harness, so instead of cutting that or pulling it off, what I'm going to do, I already pulled the shift rod off. This was a 15 millimeter. And it's just the pivot bracket for the shift cable. Which hooks up through here, goes through the firewall, actually through the floor and up through the firewall. That'll come off as well. I don't need it, but I'm also not using this transmission, so it doesn't matter too much. But I'm saving the harness and make sure all the plugs are here because we're going to put it in the other full-size Jeep swap that we're doing just to get it on the road, and then it'll get upgraded from 4L60 to a 4L80. And different transfer case, not going to run this automatic shift. It'll get a standard 241C like I'm gonna run, but instead of cutting these or fighting with these and making sure they stayed plugged in, the glue's good, I'll just pull the 2 bolts out of the side of the transmission. They're 13. I grabbed a 12 on accident, but I'll pull them out. There's one here. This one's gonna be kind of hard to get, but I'm gonna get it out without cutting this plug off. But that's the reason why changing a neutral safety switch on the GMs is such a pain, is because it's glued in. Some guys have been able to heat it. There's probably ways around it, and you can mess with it. I'm not going to mess with it too much because it'll come off just fine. So to save that and not break that, because you'll end up breaking the switch, and I know this one still worked, I'm going to leave it together, pull that off, and then I'll pull the wiring harness and everything off the motor and get everything unplugged properly. Like, I unplugged all the O2 sensors. The front ones are heated before the cats. The cats are still in it. But then the wide pipe will come out. I'll pull the header, exhaust manifolds out next. This brake booster is still on here because I just didn't want brake fluid going everywhere. All of these are factory brake lines will come off, and I'll end up redoing them because I'm not running the ABS module. The EGR is coming off, so these exhaust manifolds we're not going to keep because most of our new stuff we don't run EGRs stuff on because they don't need to, and they just clog up the system on these. So another thing you'll find, there's actually a spot. I have pulled this and left it in neutral so I can roll this chassis around because I didn't have the drive lines out yet. There is a dash line here and here. You probably don't see it too well. Try to get a close-up of it when I have this off. That's actually the neutral position. There's, on the newer ones, have a little spoon thing that holds it in so you know where it's at. That's how you set these because these are clockable. Just because if the detents are set off a little bit so you can fine-tune these. And sometimes they get stuck on the shifter, so I'll use some WD-40. I'm going to break up the oil here. It'll help to pull it off. I'll loosen the bolt up more, and it should walk just off just fine. I know that it's cheating because I have the body off. It is a pain because you got to think you're on the chassis here. The body's all right here, so this makes it a pain. For me, easiest way to pull a motor or check the oil, take the body off. No, it's just made it easier on me now that I don't have the actual body, so that's cool. And this was a good sacrifice, I guess you could call, but this vehicle had a tree drop on it, this Tahoe. So the body was pretty well mangled, or just the front clip, and you can replace it, but it was cheap. Motor was missing. They cut, previous owners just had it sitting, so they didn't want to do anything with it. So it was a perfect candidate for this job. Some people don't like, oh, you're taking apart a good vehicle. Well, technically I took a good vehicle when I pulled my Cherokee apart. So it's personal preference. And other people are going to hate that I'm doing the Cherokee swap onto this chassis because it takes away. That's fine. People do how they want to build. I build my stuff how I like. And that's the point. Like, the car culture nowadays has been terrible. They hate on absolutely everything. And if anybody does anything different than them or different opinion, it's wrong or it'll never work. So I find it, just build how you like. I build my stuff the way I do because it's entertaining to me. And less like that. So build your stuff the way you want and enjoy it and help other people as much as you can. That's how I look at it. So this one's saved. I should be able to use it on this harness will stay together. Early 5.3, did check the VIN number on it. It was VIN number T or U, no, T, I think. 8th digit T, so it's a LM7 5.3 liter. It's an early model, so it is a 4L60, which I already knew. Next step is I'll finish pulling the rest off the motor, and then it's on to pulling the exhaust off, and I can put my headers on it to see if it fits in the Cherokee, if I can use those Speed Engineering C10 twin turbo headers, but I'm going to do a crossover and run single, but I'll show you that shortly. So the transfer case actually has quite a few plugs on it. Bunch of speed sensors. So you have your front output, which helps coordinate when it locks the front diff in. You have 2 actual plug-ins for the drive for the auto shift. This one keeps its own pigtail because it runs to the bottom of the motor. This is the main shift motor. That one's unplugged. And then you have 2 speed sensors on top here. And that's about it. Tail shaft, and then lets the transmission read. And there is the other transmission main plug is on the passenger side or right hand side, depending which way you're facing the vehicle. This is a jumper, just lets it go male to male, so it stays with the harness so I know where it is. And then I'll pull the rest of the stuff off the motor.
Love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm
Alright, so I got most of the harness off the motor. I have this little bit that goes underneath the motor. There's actually a sensor in the power steering pump on the backside in the reservoir to let you know on the dash if you're low on power steering fluid. So that needs to come unplugged. There's a little wiring loom that goes underneath the motor. That's also the power wire from the battery to the starter, and the excited wire, and then the cam positions or crank position sensor is actually on the passenger side on the block behind the starter on these. To make it a lot easier for myself, I'm actually just going to pull the exhaust manifolds off now so I can get into them or get into the starter. So sometimes when you are pulling spark plug wires on these motors, the bottom boots are actually very tight, and if you're trying to save them, I have found that if you use a little bit of China locks, don't go overdo it, but if you can grab around the tin and grab the boot, you can pull these off. Not crush them, because the heat, so see these heat shields are actually pretty nice, and you just got to be gentle with it, because if you just pull on the wire, it'll actually pull the plug wire apart and you can't use it. I like to save them because it's nice to have them spares, because these are actually pretty expensive. To buy a full set for these motors from O'Reilly's, it's like $100 or so, maybe a little bit more. But if you're on a budget and want to save these, open them up so you don't crush them, and a little bit of movement, and you can still do it in chassis. I pulled the body off to show an easier working force so you guys can see. Now, I pulled the body so I can use this combination in a different rig. Besides the point, it makes it a lot easier to pull these off, and it saves them so you don't wreck them all, because they do get expensive if you have to keep replacing them. I pulled all the plug wires off. I did break 2 of them. The trick works most of the time, but sometimes it doesn't. So do it at your own pace and just pay attention, pull apart. I was trying to go too fast and I pulled 2 of the wires and killed the wires, so they're toast. But I did save 6, so I have 6 spares just in case. But most of the wiring's off the harness, and you saw me throw the little plastic safety clips off from the injectors. They're cool. I don't mind not you running them. My injectors stay plugged in because they're pretty safety plugged. They're just there. It was a factory thing. You can take them off if you want to. The other part of the loom that's underneath the motor is the AC pump, or yeah, AC plugs. There's 2 on the pump. There's 1 on the back side, and there's 1 off the face or off the side. You can get 2 right here. It's kind of goofy, but it's just off each side. That's what engages the clutch. This pump is bad. This rig was already, AC was drained, so it was all good. So a good rule of thumb that I've found, if you're gonna pull these exhaust manifolds off, I pulled the 15 millimeter, the 3 nuts off the flange. I had to heat them first, so if you use fire, be very wary of your surroundings because most things on these things are all flammable. So don't burn your shop down, don't burn out in your garage, don't burn your car down. Be very cautious when doing that. I stripped out 2 on the other side, so I ended up using the Sawzall, cut the flange on the exhaust manifold because these are trash. But when you're taking these off, go in with an end wrench and actually do these first. And work way from the center out or outside in. I guess the same thing because people are like, oh, it'll warp. Well, if they're gonna warp anyway. As like you saw, or as you see, one of these are broken. But loosen them first, and then go through with power to pull them out. It's just, it lets them break free without the impact of an impact driver breaking them. And if they break, and it'll just weld a nut to them so I can pull them out. These are aluminum head, which is nice. But they come out pretty good. So. Just like that. Didn't have any of them break. I'm going to replace them because these things have been heat cycled a lot. Won't reuse these. They're flattened, but they had the good gaskets in it. I have ran the composite, but the ports are way too big, and actually they'll blow out on headers. So use an MLS gasket. It will save you a lot of headache. The only reason why I wanted this out of the way, so I can get to the starter a lot easier. Now I can get to those bolts without having to get it all tied up into it. Alright guys, so power went out last night. I tried to get as much filming in, and then I got some shots last night and it was dark. I won't be able to use them. I'll post some shorts up on YouTube, or here on YouTube, so I can actually, you can see those. I'll try to tag that video in this. But I got the exhaust manifolds off. Here's the headers. The driver's side is super tight. I'm probably gonna have to move. I'm gonna flip my alternator and my power steering pump, so I'll put an aftermarket bracket on it, probably from Goat Built, so I can keep that reservoir where I can get to it without having to build a heat shield and have to take it off to be able to check fluid or anything like that because it's super tight to the header. Driver's side works. The main thing with these is I'm gonna have to do a remote mount for my coils because the coils themselves point right at the header tubes, and I'm just gonna run longer coil wires for that issue. But these are twin turbo headers for a C10 6872 early Chevy. I'm running these ones because they cleared my heater box when this body was on the factory chassis, but I am gonna move that heater box. But I have these headers already. They're from Speed Engineering. They are super clean. I have these custom, or not custom, they're cast stainless T3, T4 elbows, and I will run those, at least run one of them, and I'm actually gonna do a crossover in front of the motor, stay away from radiator hoses and anything else in the front, but I'm gonna do a crossover so I can tie the driver's side into the passenger side. Turbo will be mounted off the passenger side, and downpipe will go on the outside of the frame is what I'm hoping for, but if plans change, and I will run it through the center if I have room. I know this video is going to be long, but thanks for watching. You guys have a good rest of your day, good rest of your night whenever you're watching this. I'm going to start tearing some more on this. I'm not going to keep going on. I got to pull the fuel tank out of this, but thank you guys for watching. You have a good rest of your day, good rest of your night. Have a good one.